おメガ進化だ。すごい実ってるね。よし、私の本気をぶつけるよ。パモト光る、輝け、私の最高の宝物。
Hey everyone, it's Mark! This is my recap for Pokémon Horizons episode 101, Fight, Terastal vs. Mega Evolution. This was the 1333rd episode of the Pokemon anime, and a lot happened in this one, so let's get straight into it. We kick things off inside the captain's deck of the Brave Olivine, where Murdoch is teaching Roy how to fly the airship. This is more symbolic than anything else, because as Murdoch explains, it's the kids who are setting their course now. They decide what the Rising Voltaclers do. We cut back to an earlier discussion the group had about where to head next. Dot suggests they go to Nemona Academy because Penny might be able to help them. Liko is confident that they'll trust the Rising Voltaclers since Clavel and Gita will remember how they had to fight off the invading explorers back in the day. So that settles it, as Cap approves this idea much to everyone else's joy and Alt's confusion. On that note, he's also mega confused about where they're going in the first place since he's never been to the Nemona Academy before. We're back in the present time now and see that Liko is trying to find Alt. Sableye leads her right to him and he's airsick. I'm surprised it took him this long, to be honest. And he declines Liko's offer of having one of the rooms aboard the airship and decides that he wants to sleep in the observation deck. Liko remembers how her grandma used to crash in this place when she was traveling with the group, but Alt just wants this place so he can see the sky. Well, and because it's the most stable part of the airship, so that will help him feel less motion sick. This whole thing was one of the longest intros in all of Horizons so far, because only now are we hitting the opening theme. I point this out because we had some changes to the animation this week. With Indy and Rubella now appearing in Spinel's office, the scene of the Rising Voltacler's flag being left in storage now shows the flag proudly waving in the sky, and then the rest of our heroes were added into this scene, including Freed for like a second when they zoom all the way out. Back to the episode, and the four kids have arrived at the Mega Orange What Set. A small character detail that I loved about this episode was Dot being nervous to present her findings on Lockvium to Clavel and Gita, just like she was preparing for some kind of school project where she had to present in front of the whole class. Her friends encourage her, saying that she should just explain it like she would in a Nidothing video. Back at the Brave Olivine, the others wonder if they'll be okay on their own. They quickly push those worries away and start working on their own tasks, having confidence in the kids to get the job done. To the principal's office we go, and I was disappointed to see Dot not wearing her Nidothing outfit. That would have been hilarious. Gita explains that they've heard the rumors about the Rising Voltaclers, but it's okay because they don't believe them. Alright, off to a good start. Dot takes a deep breath before saying, "Yo, Sue!" Okay, no, she doesn't do that, but instead she starts explaining what they know about Lockvium. I didn't know she kept footage of all of these events, but anyways, Dot does a good job covering the basics of Lockvium and how Exceed is hurting Pokemon by using it to create strong spheres. Unfortunately, the two grown-ups are like, well, that's cool and all, but we're not going to do anything about this right now. They want to see more evidence before taking action, and this was my least favorite part of the episode. That in itself may be a controversial statement, but we'll get onto that later. For now, our heroes are deflated that their plea for help fell on deaf ears, but at least Clavel is going to show them someone who may be willing to help, that being Jock, the biology teacher. I always get a laugh out of the fact that his Japanese name is Zinnia. Talk about opposite personalities. Anyways, while they talk, Idiot McGee over here has somehow gotten separated from the rest of the group. It takes him all of 2 seconds to get hungry and start wandering off towards the smell of food, which leads him to the school cafeteria. His feast is stopped by Dendra, who wants to know what he's doing here in the first place considering he's not even a student. Alt makes a break for it and runs past Nemona on his way out, who tries to help Dendra by chasing after him. Back to the biology classroom, and our heroes tell Jock some juicy details that they probably should have told Clavel and Gita in my opinion. They start by explaining how Lockvium makes the affected Pokemon stronger, which is interesting to Jock. This is obviously how Exceed gets away with this. On the surface level, it's cool to think that this thing makes Pokemon stronger, kind of like Mega Evolution. But when you start to dig deeper, their whole operation falls apart. We're just openly talking about Laqua being located atop Komori Mountain now, which is kind of wild to me, but isn't it at least a little fishy that Exceed has totally blocked off all access to that place? It's definitely a little fishy that while this whole conversation is going on, Alt is running for his life as Nemona and Dendra chase him down. Jock decides that he's going to start looking into Lockvium himself, so I guess that's a small victory that our heroes can take away. They finally realize that Alt is missing and go looking for him. Their search winds up outside at the schoolyard where they find Nemona and Dendra having successfully caught him. Nemona is excited to see Roy again, especially since he's wearing a Mega Ring. Once they hear Alt is with the Rising Voltaclers, they let him go. Not sure how Hariyama was able to hold onto a ghost type like Sableye in the first place though. Anyways, Nemona does the most Nemona thing possible and challenges Roy to a battle right on the spot. Let's get this party started, and Dendra introduces some weird rules. It's going to be a 2v2 double battle, but only one Pokemon needs to get knocked out for the match to be decided. I guess this technically is the same rule set as the Elite Four tag battle thing from like 50 episodes ago, where it only took one knockout for a trainer to be eliminated. Roy chooses to battle with Lucario and Crocalor, while Nemona sends out Palmud and Ribombee. It's always so crazy to me just how small Ribombee is. What a tiny little thing. After an opening exchange between the two fighting types is a draw, Nemona heals Palmud back up by using Pollen Puff. This is one of my favorite moves to use in competitive, but I know not everyone is aware of how this move works, so I thought they did a good job explaining how Pollen Puff heals your partner's HP but damages your opponent. While this is going on, Dot gets a call from Penny and she asks her to come talk in private. Dot walks off while the battle continues, with Nemona calling for a Focus Punch. This requires Palmud to charge up and focus, and Ribombee shows off how great of a support Pokemon it is by blocking Roy's attacks with Light Screen. It is pretty funny to me watching Palmud have to charge up so much just to use a single Focus Punch. I've been watching a lot of Advanced Generation battles recently, and they just spammed the heck out of that move. There was no need to tighten your focus back then. We cut to a commercial break, and when we come back, Dot has arrived at Penny's room. She shows Dot this map of Paldea with several areas highlighted. This is where Penny has tracked Lockweem signs throughout Paldea, giving the Rising Volt Tackler some new leads to investigate. Back to the double battle of the century though, where Roy is trying to rethink his strategy. They know they need to cut off Palmud before he unleashes another one of those Focus Punches, but Nemona has a plan and calls for another support move. Ribombee fires off a Sticky Web, which of course works nothing like it does in the games, but Roy is able to burn through this by calling for a Flame Charge. Crocalor really turns the tables here by not only knocking down Palmud, but also intercepting Ribombee's Pollen Puff. Since this one was aimed at Nemona's Pokemon, it's a healing Pollen Puff, not a damaging one. Dot and Penny come on out to watch the rest of the battle, but shut up everyone, now's not the time for talking, it's time to Mega Evolve. That's right, Roy's shiny Mega Lucario has reached its final form, and Nemona is so fired up. She whips out her Terror Orb, and this animation for this part was especially clean, and I never pay attention to animation quality, so you know this stood out. And now the stage is set for this episode's titular showdown between Terastallization and Mega Evolution. The two once again go head to head in a clash of powers, which ends in a stalemate. Nemona tries to buy time for a Focus Punch by having Ribombee fire off a flurry of Pollen Puffs, but Crocalor takes one for the team and eats them all, despite the damage he may take. This clears the way for one final collision, and Roy calls for Metal Claw while Nemona passionately yells that they're putting their all into this, and calls for another Focus Punch. Both moves make contact, and after a second, it's Palmud who takes the fall. Lucario is the winner. And since it only takes one knockout to decide this match, that makes Roy victorious. Roy celebrates with his Pokemon. Pretty impressive to be taking down someone as strong as Nemona. She's not down about her loss though, and I legitimately burst out laughing when Roy tells her that he couldn't believe Palmud's Terra type was fighting. What are you talking about? This was so silly to me. Nemona once again does the most Nemona thing possible and says that they should battle again right away, but Alt steps in and says he's got next. Too bad for him because Penny lays down the challenge next, which shocks Nemona. Penny wants to have a battle against Dot and sends out two of her evolutions to set up a battle for the next episode. We still have to wrap this one up though, and it ends with a quick scene of Zerk and Onya searching for a Methio. This just served as an update to tell us that they've made no progress so far, but they're still hopeful that the Zygarde Cube will help them achieve their goal. With that, time for this episode to fade to black. I just knew this episode was going to be a divisive one, so I'm not surprised that some people have had some strong reactions to this episode. I pretty much laid all of this out in a prediction I made before the episode aired, and I was almost 100% accurate. The only thing I didn't get completely right was that I would love this episode, and I wouldn't go that far since I'm giving this episode a 7 out of 10 rating. I definitely liked this episode, but didn't love it. The battle itself was good but unspectacular, and the rest of this episode had its ups and downs. I like seeing our heroes step up their efforts to combat Exceed, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Jock and Penny's help will aid the Rising Volt Tacklers in the future. But I did think it was pretty stupid that Clavel and Gita decided not to do anything about the Lockweem yet. I don't know, it just doesn't really make a ton of sense to me why they wouldn't want to join the fight against the group of people who literally infiltrated the academy, stole a ton of data, and have a global propaganda campaign going against the Rising Volt Tacklers to cover up their shady business practices. If they had at least explained something like, oh, we can't get involved until we're 1000% sure because it's too big of a risk to get the entire school and Paldea League involved, then maybe I wouldn't be reacting so strongly, but we got none of that. Maybe we just didn't have time to get to that because we needed to focus focus on the much anticipated Roy vs. Nemona rematch. Like I pointed out earlier, I was very confident Roy would win this. He actually seemed like the favorite going into this one in my opinion. Not only did our heroes already defeat the literal top champion in Gita, but they've all grown much stronger since then, especially Roy. While we don't know the full story of his mega training with Lucario and Kalos yet, we do know that he's much stronger than he was before, and we have never seen Lucario get knocked out yet. So, considering they've already gone head-to-head with the Paldea Elite Four and Nemona, it makes complete sense to me why Roy was able to beat Nemona in this episode. She stated over and over again how she was going all out and not holding anything back, but even her best was not enough to defeat Roy. I think this is really cool. It's a logical next step to show how much our heroes have grown, and proves that they're more than prepared to face even tougher challenges ahead. I know not everyone will agree with that though. Maybe you think Roy should have lost, and ironically, I'm going to be talking about a very similar topic in less than a week when I release a top 10 for battles Ash Ketchum won, but we think should have lost. I say we because this video is going to be a collab, so I'm excited for you guys to watch when that one comes out. Another angle that's worth discussing, besides just the result itself, is to focus specifically on Roy's Lucario. Aside from being his designated Mega Evolution, Roy's Lucario has gotten about as much focus as his Kilowattrel in the last dozen episodes, which is not that much. So for such a relatively unknown Pokemon possessed by a main character to be defeating a champion level trainer's Pokemon, that just doesn't sit right. I can definitely understand this perspective, and I know what you're thinking watching this. Here comes a big but. But here's how I rationalize things. First of all, from my point of view, the Paldea League is just not as strong as we've seen previous leagues depicted in the Pokemon anime. We've consistently seen gym leaders, Elite Four members, and even champions be not the strongest trainers throughout Horizons. So aside from her title, is it really that big of an accomplishment for Roy's Lucario to be defeating one of Nemona's Pokemon? I don't think so. But forget the opponent for a second, what about Lucario? We still don't know anything about this Pokemon, like how Roy got it, what their training entailed, etc, etc. I'm completely confident that we'll get this eventually, because that's just how Horizons does its storytelling. Think about how many times they've resorted to full-on flashbacks to show us important plot points. Once we get closer to the release of Legends ZA, I have no doubt that the anime is going to shift its focus to be more on Mega Evolution, and we'll get that backstory about Roy's Lucario. It's not guaranteed to happen, but I'm willing to be patient enough to see if it does happen, since that would fall in line with how Horizons has done storytelling thus far. That isn't to say I love this kind of non-linear storytelling. I think there are more effective ways to do it, but maybe that's a broader discussion better served for another time. Right now, I guess I'll wrap up my discussion on this episode by saying that I'm curious to hear what you all think in the comments. Obviously, this was a polarizing episode. A lot of people may have hated it, and for various reasons. I enjoyed it, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that too. As I always say, there is no right or wrong, everyone's feelings are totally valid. My feelings towards Roy vs. Nemona in this episode really are not that strong, since this whole thing was just a friendly battle without any stakes on it. It had some weird rules, and was mainly just there to help transition things from focusing on Terastalization, Scarlet and Violet's gimmick, back to Mega Evolution, Pokemon Legends ZA's gimmick. I doubt the epic showdown between Dot and Penny will be as scrutinized in the next episode, but I am curious to see how that one plays out. It looks like we won't spend too much time on that though, since there's going to be an entirely separate plotline involving a random Naranja Academy student, and it would look like those same ruins our heroes visited like 50 episodes ago. I can't say that they're going to encounter the same Gimmighoul and Charcadet as they did back in that episode, but I'm excited to see what happens. Do you think we're going to get a capture next week? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below, and don't forget to leave a like on this video if you haven't already. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos, and I'll see you guys next time.